What up, though? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling from the 313. I am your host, Mike D. And today, my guest is a podcaster. He is from Arkansas. He has his podcast is Outside the Square Circle, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what's okay, cool. The host of that podcast, Mason Lott. Mason, what up, though? Welcome to the show and welcome to the 313.
Thank you, man. I'm so happy to be here. I've missed having people that I can just sit and talk about the world of professional wrestling with.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, since I started podcasting too, I've met a lot of cool people. They've been on my podcast, I've been on their podcast, and just having, just dope conversations about wrestling. We all giving our opinions on who we like, who we don't like. And it's just all love, you know what I'm saying? It's not a debate thing, nobody going back and forth trying to fight or whatever. It's just people talking about wrestling, something that we all love.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, we might have some debates here and there. My recency bias, the whole Cody Rhodes and the bloodline thing. I mean, there's that, but there's one true thing that everybody has in common is their passion for the sport.
Definitely. So to get things started off, just talk about, growing up being a wrestling fan. Who were some of your favorites? What got you into professional wrestling? Just tell your story real quick.
So I got into professional wrestling whenever I was about 2. I would always sit with my dad and watch, Monday Night Raw, and I want to say it was on Thursdays whenever I was watching SmackDown. And that was in the early days of SmackDown around 2003 or so. So it was still fairly new. I mean, it's been around for a few years, but it wasn't where it is today.
Right.
The wrestler that really grabbed my attention quicker than anything was Kane. I don't know why. I always had this, anytime I seen something, it's going to sound bad, but demonic, scary, kind of creepy, yeah. I've always gravitated towards. So my 2 favorite wrestlers of all time is Kane and The Undertaker.
Okay.
My first match I remember watching was theirs at WrestleMania 20 in 2004.
Okay, cool.
And it's kind of just gone up since then. I mean, we've watched wrestling, and around the time of the PG era, so from about late 2008 to 2014, well, late 2014 was when it started to get kind of decent again. That's when my dad kind of fell off, but I've always watched every Monday, every Friday, every PLE.
Yeah.
I was that one kid in school.
Hey, that's what's up. Hey, you know what? It's funny because that's around the time I think I got into wrestling. I think I was anywhere between the age of 3 and 5. I grew up in the era when wrestling was first getting started with Hogan, Piper.
Oh, yeah.
Vince McMahon was a ring announcer. Ring announcer, not ring announcer, but a play-by-play commentator with Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
And, I grew up on Saturday Night's Main Event. Back then, I think it was only 5 pay-per-views out of the year. And just watching wrestling from then and just being around and watching it during the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, the Ruthless Aggression Era. I feel like I've seen wrestling evolve from the bottom to where it is now. They at a point now, WWE, where it's just every show that they do is a sellout. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. And it's for example, me and my wife a couple of nights ago watched the very first WrestleMania. And then after that, we watched WrestleMania 40 directly after, just to see how much things have grown since then.
Yeah. And it was at one time WrestleMania was 3 hours, and And sometimes if it went over 3 hours, it was probably like, 10 to 15 minutes over.
Yeah.
Now you gotta pretty much take a nap before you watch WrestleMania because it's like,
Yeah.
it lasted. I'm glad that they did the two nights because
Oh, I'm right there with you.
watching it for like 6 7 hours, it was just like, man, by the time 11 12 o'clock come, you ready to go to sleep. You pretty much drained out by wrestling.
WrestleMania 35 was their last one night WrestleMania, and I fell asleep before the main event. Like, I
Yeah, I
hated
think so.
to,
I did
but.
too. Yeah.
And I was looking forward to that main event because it was the very first women's main event. So I
Okay.
was looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah.
But I guess it just was too long, and I ended up falling asleep about. Honestly, I
Yeah.
think I fell asleep towards the end of the Triple H and Batista match.
Okay. Yeah. I think that was like the last match I remember because I vaguely remember, like you said, the triple threat match with Charlotte, Ronda Rousey, and Becky. And
Yeah.
it was just it was a long pay-per-view, and then that's not even including the 2 hour pre-show. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you got the 2 hour pre-show, then you probably got anywhere between 5 and 7 hours of WrestleMania. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that they split it up, and it looked like they doing the same thing with SummerSlam in 2026. So
Yeah. And I feel like that'd be good for like their bigger PLEs. Like that
yeah,
way they
yeah,
have more of an opportunity to get some people that aren't usually on TV a time in that kind of spotlight. You know what I mean? It'll give
yeah,
more opportunities for some of those up and coming people. Because I already know people like Braun Breaker and Ilya Dragunov, they're going to get their TV time no matter what.
oh yeah, definitely.
But thinking about some of the undercarders like Ricochet, for a huge example. There you go, bud. Sorry about that.
Oh, you good? You good?
But like people like Ricochet and hell, up until just recently, he started getting more. But Chad Gable,
Yeah,
it took that feud with Gunther to actually like kind of make him seen.
yeah,
Because until then, what was the Alpha Academy? It was
that's true.
kind of that spot filler. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
yeah, they were doing some good stuff, but until Chad Gable started feuding with Gunther over the Intercontinental Championship,
yeah.
he was
Yeah,
kind of just there.
yeah.
So the two nights will definitely give more people an opportunity to show their craft.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And speaking of Chad Gable, I'm hearing that he's close to resigning with the company, and because his contract was supposed to expire towards the sometime this summer, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard Ricochet is leaving the company, and what happened yesterday with him on Raw was pretty much like his send off.
Yeah, and I mean, I want Ricochet to be happy, but WWE could have done a whole lot more with him.
I agree. I totally agree. Like
That dude has more talent in his index finger than I have anywhere. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
he
yeah,
does stuff in that ring that hurts me sitting on my couch. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
he is the one of the definitions of wasted talent. And I hate to say that because I love Ricochet. But, it kind of ever since he lost that title to Gunther, it kind of just went downhill from there.
yeah. I agree, and I'm not really. I've seen like clips of when he was in Lucha Underground, and I think he wrestled in New Japan, and
Yeah, Prince Puma.
I know he had different names, but yeah, he I think WWE could have elevated him to be one of the best little big men in their company. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, even if he never reached the top of the mountain like a Seth Rollins or a Roman Reigns or a Cody Rhodes, he could have definitely carried that mid card to places it hasn't seen in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
agree.
I mean, hell, the last major feud that Ricochet was even in was that story with Logan Paul, and it only lasted what, a couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So I
then
mean, they haven't done anything with him, and that's what upsets me the most. Because, like I said, he is talented.
Yeah, I totally agree. And hopefully, whatever move he makes, I hope that it's a good move. I hope that he's happy. AEW, like I kind of want to see him in AEW, but then I don't because it seemed like everybody that goes to AEW kind of get lost in that mix a little bit. And
That's
I feel
one
like,
reason why I don't necessarily care too much for AEW. Like, yeah, I'll watch their product because I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not a WWE fan. I'm not
yeah,
an AEW fan. I'm not a New Japan fan. I am a wrestling fan.
yeah,
So I'll watch all the product that I can. But the thing that really strikes a nerve with me with AEW is they'll sign huge free agents that has just left WWE or just got released, or free agents from other companies, use them for at most maybe a month, and then we
mhm.
never see them again.
That's true. Yeah,
Like
that's true.
John Morrison or Johnny Elite. He had this huge debut a couple of years ago, but to my knowledge, I haven't seen him on AEW pretty much since.
I think he had a match on there last week because I know
Did
he's
he?
on there now with his wife, Talia Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think he was on there last week. It was either Dynamite or I think it was Collision. It was either
Okay.
Dynamite or Collision. And yeah, but I totally agree. Like, I look at a guy like Keith Lee, even before
Yes.
Keith Lee had all the health issues or whatever, Keith Lee was in a position to be that guy. Even when he was in
Yeah.
WWE dropped the ball. That was a Vince thing right there. When he was
Oh, very much so.
when they changed his name to the Bearcat and all this other weird stuff, and it was
Dude,
just
that
like,
was
man,
probably the stupidest thing I've seen in a long time. I mean, and let's just face it, Vince was notorious for doing stupid stuff.
yeah, I totally agree. But this the
But
thing. This the
Keith
thing I
Lee
think.
was somebody that really could have put the business in places that it hasn't reached.
Yeah, I agree. This is the thing that I think about with Keith Lee all the time because I heard that before he got released by WWE, that they wanted him to get in shape. They wanted him to lose some weight and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when he didn't do it, I see that they told Gunther to do it. And that gets you wondering that if Keith Lee would have did what Gunther did, would his whole career be totally different than what it is now?
That's something to think about. Like I remember hearing about them having Gunther drop weight, but even if he was the same size he was, Keith Lee is a machine in that ring and knows how to put on absolute clinics.
Yeah, I
Like
totally agree.
watching his work down in NXT with guys like Adam Cole,
Yeah,
no matter who they paired him up against, he made my opinion, 5-star match out of him.
yeah. Even the matches that he had with Dijak for the North American Championship, those were some good
Yeah,
matches too. Some real good matches.
Dijak's a hell of a competitor in his own right.
Yeah. And I I think I read something that he might be leaving the company soon also. I think his contract is expiring. And that's another guy that I think that he was good in NXT. It seemed like they used him in NXT to get other people over. But on the main roster, I just really don't see nothing, really see them doing anything for him. Like they tried the whole retribution thing and that just flopped. And
Oh
he went
yeah,
back to
that
NXT.
was
It seemed like when he went back to NXT that basically they just used him to get other people over.
right. And I mean, if they played their cards right, Dijak would have been a hell of a competitor on the main roster.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But I think the whole thing with Retribution, I think that kind of burned his chances because, I mean, it wasn't necessarily his doings for that whole storyline,
Yeah.
but it kind of left a bad taste in other people's mouth of like, oh, this is the guy that was with this group and they didn't do anything. So what makes me think that he's going to do anything now?
Yeah. And then they gave them these old weird names, and it was just like, what are y'all doing with this?
Dominic Dijakovic or some shit like that.
It was I cannot think of the names because the one guy from Maximum Male Models was in the group.
Oh, T-Bar.
Yeah, it was
Flapjack.
Yeah.
Mace.
And was it Reckoning or something like that? It was something weird. They just gave them the weirdest names, and it was just like, man.
And I mean, I understand to a point they kind of had to do what they could because at that time they were doing stuff out of the Performance Center and slowly starting to transition over to the Thunderdome. So I mean, I give credit where it's due for that part.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been better had they would have given it a spot where somebody attacks them and kind of kills them off screen. But instead of it just being 1 week they're on screen doing something and then the next week you never see them again.
Yeah. That whole thing was a flop. I know they were trying something, but once again, another Vince McMahon project that just went down the drain.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I hate to say it, because I mean, there was really nothing that nobody could do. But the Thunderdome era, in my opinion, was probably the worst era of professional wrestling.
Yeah,
because for God's sakes, the zombie lumberjack match.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was terrible.
How do I explain to somebody who's never watched wrestling before anything about that match?
Yeah, and then
why is the Miz in the middle of the ring being eaten by zombies? Like,
yeah. And then you already know people that don't watch wrestling feel some type of way about wrestling anyway. So
exactly.
when you do try to put them up on something like, okay, here, watch this, and then they got to sit and watch a zombie lumberjack match, it just it don't make you look good. That's
absolutely not. And I had a buddy over to watch that PLE. I can't remember which one it was. And he's watched wrestling here and there, but never really sat down and was invested. I finally talked him into giving it an open-minded shot, unbeknownst to me that something like that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally told him, I was like, look, if you don't ever want to watch this again, I don't know if I blame you.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah. So
I was like, don't hate me. I didn't know. I was like, you had as much knowledge about this as I
did. So I know you said that you have a podcast, Outside the Square Circle. Just talk about your podcast. What made you get started? Your first episode, and I know you said you only had a few because of life situations and stuff. Just talk about what your goal is for your podcast going forward.
My goal is to kind of expand a community where everybody can feel welcome to talk about wrestling. Because to some people, wrestling can be considered a sensitive area where it's like you have people that think, oh, well, I don't know why you watch that, it's fake, and then so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I want there to be a 100% safe realm to where they can express how they feel about the current product. And so that's why I started the podcast. And with guests, I've been using some of my friends with a local independent company out of Arkansas called Mid-States Wrestling.
Okay.
I'm huge into the local independent scene. Yeah. A lot of the talent, producers, owner-operators are really good friends of mine. And so I've gotten the opportunity to sit down with them, talk to them about their journey into it and where they see themselves going at the rate that they're going. And then kind of talking about their origin story on how they got to step into the ring.
That's what's up. Yeah. And since I've started this podcast, I've had professional wrestlers on, and I like having professional wrestlers on, just hearing their stories about, their grind, in this professional wrestling business. And a lot of them put a lot of work in. A lot of them are very serious about their craft.
Oh yeah.
One lot of guys have told me, like, when you win a championship, it don't matter what championship you win. When you get that championship, they give it to you because it's not about what you do in the ring. It's about what you do behind the scenes. Do you help with
Oh yeah.
with putting the ring together and taking it down after a show, and working with other wrestlers and helping them get better and stuff. And I just think just listening to their stories is just dope, because everybody got a different story. Um, Everybody come from different backgrounds and stuff like that. And to see, just to hear some of the stories that I've from some of the people that I've had on my podcast, it has really been real cool, and
Yeah.
I've always respected wrestling. I've always been a big fan. But since I started doing this and talking to other wrestlers and other promoters and stuff like that, I've definitely gained like mad mad extra respect for what these guys do, and not and just the podcasters also, because this is something that we're wrestling fans. It's something that we want to do. Some people may make it a hobby. Some people want to make it a career. So
Yeah.
I've had a good time doing this. It's almost a year since I've done my first episode, so I've just been enjoying this ride, and hopefully, it for both of us, for all of us that are out here doing podcasts, that we can grow and it turn into something bigger.
Right. And that's just the thing is like, it gives us a platform to be able to, like I said, build a community together.
Yeah,
Meet
definitely.
people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world that share one main common passion, and that's professional wrestling.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what are some of the, do you have any goals or anything that you guys set for your podcast, like any future guests you would like to have on your show?
So once I get it back up and going, I've got a couple of people that I'm talking to right now, trying to set up some dates and see about getting some traction. That way, I can actually build a foundation for it, because I've already got some episodes up right now,
Okay.
but that was just, I hate to say, trying to find the right wording for it, kind of thrown together.
Okay.
Because when I did my first episode in January of 2020, I was just a 17-year-old with a camera.
Okay.
That's all it was. And so I'm trying to build it to where I don't necessarily want to make this a career, but, see how high I can go.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I see with podcast or any kind of like social media show per se is I want to see where that ceiling is.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. And I still remember my first episode for wrestling for from the 313. I did it in my car before I started work. I just pulled up to my job, maybe like, I don't want to say an hour early, maybe like 30 minutes, an extra 30 minutes or 45 minutes early. And I just sat in my car and I just talked for maybe like 30, 45 minutes or whatever. And that would really got me going, as far as like, okay, I want to start my own podcast or whatever, and just talking about wrestling. Like, and then before that, before I did my episode, I was actually a guest on a podcast called Friends of the Square Circle. And
Okay.
it's basically a podcast where Shout out to Crander Q as well. Um, Basically, he bring people that are wrestling fans. He have them on as guests on his show, and they just basically talk about their fandom of pro wrestling. And sometimes they talk about their collectibles. He has a spinoff on his podcast called Show Me the Collectibles. So
I got you.
it's pretty cool. And that gave me the itch to get it started. And then once I got my first episode started, I just started getting out here, reaching out to people, reaching out to me, and the rest is history.
Oh, definitely. And the reason why I really wanted to get this back up and running, not only that way I can quit boring my wife with my long going rant about what's going on in wrestling right now. I say that, but she loves it too. Is a buddy of mine runs a podcast called If You Give a Dad a Podcast. His name is Jared. And if you
Okay.
haven't checked him out, I definitely would suggest him.
All right.
He's not just a wrestling podcast. He has guests on from wrestlers to promoters to musicians to comedians to comic book nerds. Like, it's a good variety of different stuff. So, I mean, it's something that I'm sure everybody could find a part in enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. So,
So seeing his traction build up, it kind of made me think, should I get this going again? And I mean, I've got the tools for it. My last podcast, I had everything set up, and I just haven't used it since.
hey, but you know what? You got everything set up for you. I'm telling you, once you get that itch, just go for it, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'm not a podcast expert, but I could just tell you just from my experience, man, just have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? And
Definitely.
Have fun with it, and just reach out to people from different areas or whatever. And then the whole cool part about it is a lot of the wrestlers that you reach out to, they want to come on because they want to promote what they got going on, and they just want people to know who they are. So
definitely. And that's what I like about having guests on from the independent circuit. It's like they want to put their name out there to a bigger platform than what they're reaching out to currently.
Yeah.
Because the biggest indie show I've ever been to had maybe 800 people.
Ooh.
Which to the common eye, that's a lot. Like to a up and coming indie star, that's a lot. But if they can put their name out to 1,000 people and keep growing from there, then they can see that slow and exponential growth.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and that's something that that I want to start getting into. Is getting into the independent scene here in Michigan. We got a lot of good indie promotions. One of the promotions here is owned by Rhino from ECW. So definitely want to get more into the independent scene. Try to get into watching a lot of their YouTube videos more, and even going to a show and just getting out there and just seeing people, for the fans to see that wrestling from the 313 is representing the Michigan scene.
Oh, definitely. And that's kind of how I feel about the local, like, tri-state area between Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma. I mean, my very first podcast was with a local wrestler named Johnny Lightning.
I just saw that.
He went from being an up-and-comer making his debut in April of 2019, and fast forward to now, he's 3-time Wrestling for a Cause Tag Team Champion, 2-time Mid-States Wrestling Tag Team Champion.
Cool.
He's gone a long ways in a short amount of time, and that's because he does something that I admire, and that's constantly promote himself and put his name out there.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that's cool about us doing podcasts and interviewing independent wrestlers. It would be so cool. It would be so
Oh
cool for
yeah.
that independent wrestler that we
Just a
interviewed.
second. What's up, bub? Oh, his show paused. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's cool. But yeah,
his show was buffering, so he didn't like that too much.
hey, it's cool. But it would be cool to see like the independent wrestlers that we had on our show make it to like AEW, WWE, TNA, New Japan, and you could kind of just look back and say, hey, I remember when he was on, starting as an independent wrestler and he came on my podcast, and to see where he's at now, like
Oh, definitely.
it kind of feel like you was part of that process a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, matter of fact, I was watching. I don't remember if it was AEW Dark or Revolution. I think it was Dark. There was
Okay.
a 6-man tag team match, and excuse me for a second, I'm going to look that up because I don't want to get my dates or who they were facing wrong.
Okay, that's cool.
But a couple of my good friends down here in the independent circuit was a part of that 6-man tag. It was, let's see. There it is. I didn't want to get any information wrong and put all that out there, so I wanted to make sure I was giving the right. It was Lance Archer and Righteous taking on Luke Langley, Colton Vaught, and Anaya in a 2.5-minute 6-man tag. Luke Langley and Colton Vaught are wrestlers in this local area that I've got the pleasure of meeting and talking to plenty of times. And so watching that and seeing them on there, that just comes to show hard work can pay off.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so cool that, because I always thought about that, like, okay, you got all these independent circuits all over the world, and it's all over the world in the country. And it's just like, you always wonder if, like, okay, do anybody from AEW go to these shows? Do anybody from WWE? And they do, you know what I'm saying? And I've seen a lot of people post, like a lot of pro wrestlers that I follow on Facebook and just social media, like they would show when they would make an appearance on like AEW Dark or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that that's real cool that even though they give them an opportunity to come on and wrestle, even though they get squashed, but they still give them that opportunity, and who knows what'll happen for them, going down the line. Like I remember watching the Netflix documentary with OVW.
Yes.
They had a lot of wrestlers on AEW, which I thought was like mad cool.
Yeah, and one of the former champion for OVW, I got to meet and sit down and talk with for about 30 minutes or so back in June of last year was Jack Vaughn.
Okay.
Dude is one of the coolest people I've ever met. I mean, and so seeing him on that documentary on Netflix, I was like, oh shit, that's badass, But talking to him about like his career, and if he didn't have such a packed schedule, I would have had him on my show, but schedules always overlapped and we couldn't necessarily get it done. But I was definitely able to like pick his brain a little bit and talk about like his upcoming into wrestling and seeing where he's at now. I mean, hell, he's a huge TikTok star. He's known in OVW. I mean, he's a step away from making it to one of the bigger companies if he chooses.
Oh, that's good. That's real good.
And that's the thing too, is like, I know quite a few people that have had opportunities to go bigger, go into companies like AEW or WWE or hell, even Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them just rejected because it's like, you know what? I'm enjoying my time having a closer relationship with the fans,
Yeah,
because once you reach WWE or AEW or bigger companies like that, your bond with the fans kind of separate a little bit,
yeah,
because if fans want to meet their favorite wrestler, they've got to pay X amount of money to
yeah,
meet them for 5-6 minutes.
yeah,
Local independent guys, if fans want to meet them, they just have to wait until after the show so they can go meet them before they start tearing the ring down, or
yeah.
show up a little bit early to meet them. And it doesn't cost, I think around here, the most I've ever seen a ticket go was like 25-30 bucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
If I'm at a WWE show and I want to go meet Seth Rollins, I'm gonna have to drop a couple grand just to do that. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And I totally agree. Like, you know, once independents, like you said, independent stars move up and join WWE, AEW, you know, that connection that they have is kind of gone. And then
Yeah.
and it's interesting, like with certain, like with wrestlers, it's like everybody think that everybody wants to go to WWE, and it's really not like that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
WWE, you on the road almost 300 days out of the year. That's one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the pay is not as good as AEW. AEW pays wrestlers more, and they have a lesser travel schedule. You know,
Right.
so I just think, really, I think it just depends on the wrestler and what they want, because a lot of people try to like criticize Will Ospreay because he chose AEW for WWE, and I ain't mad at him. You know what I'm saying? He
Oh,
want more
absolutely
money.
not.
He want more money, and he want less travel. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah, and it's like, I understand that completely. And the thing is some people don't want to go to WWE because they want to have their own creative freedom with who they built for
yeah,
however long that they've been on the indies. You know, it's like, once you make it to WWE, you sign that contract, then 90% of the time they're going to have creative freedom over you.
yeah, yeah,
Like, for example, whenever Seth Rollins was over on the indies, he was Tyler Black.
yeah, yeah,
Then he signed the contract, and now he's Seth Rollins,
yeah,
which that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's, some people just don't want to lose their craft that they've worked hard to build for so long. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And they never know if things are going to end up like sometimes it does, where they make it to NXT and make a name for themselves there, and then work their ass off to make it to the main roster, and then have something like Aleister Black happen, and they just kind of drop you.
yeah, yeah. And then I kind of think of also Mercedes Moné.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, she's been in AEW, and I'm just not feeling the whole CEO thing. I'm not feeling like the attire. You know, it just seemed from where I'm from, they would say she look a little radish, or look a
Yeah.
little cheap or whatever. But I understand now. I had to sit there. I was watching Dynamite last week, and I had to think about it a little bit, and it was just like, okay, even though she did what she did in WWE, and you know, most people probably say she need to go back. I understand what she's doing, because she want to be able to do her own thing. She want to be able to go to New Japan and wrestle against the top stars there while she's in
Oh, yeah.
AEW. And from what we hear, she got paid some good money to do that too in AEW. So I look at it also like she could not only open that door, not just for women as far as like how much money they make as pro wrestlers, but she could kind of open up that door for the men too, because it's men
Exactly.
wrestlers that are not making that much money either.
And that's another reason why I really like the direction that WWE is going with NXT, like with this quote unquote forbidden door.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you have AEW stars going over to New Japan to create potential dream matches.
yeah,
Now you have NXT collabing with TNA, which something if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I'd have laughed in your face and called you dumb that they're never going to merge.
yeah,
But we ended up having a hell of a match between Jordan Grace and Roxanne Perez.
yeah. That was real good.
And just by the looks of it, that's just the beginning. Seeing WWE now feel comfortable in their own skin to branch out, to work together with other companies,
Yeah,
that can do huge things. Same thing as AEW's been doing.
yeah. I totally agree. And yeah, when Jordan Grace had debuted, when she debuted on NXT a couple weeks ago, I was just like, wow, like, okay, because they kind of got the motor running a little bit when she was in the Royal Rumble, and she
Yeah, and I
lasted.
mean, oh yeah, she had a hell of a performance in the Rumble. And what's bad is it's gonna sound bad, but I didn't have very high expectations whenever they were about to introduce Jordan Grace because they didn't say who it was. They just said Roxanne's gonna be defending against this woman.
Yeah,
And in my mind, I'm like, is it somebody being called down back to NXT? Is it somebody
yeah,
coming back from injury?
right, right.
Never, honestly, never would I have guessed Jordan Grace.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then that was the same the same episode that Ethan Page debuted and
Yes,
attacked Trick Williams.
yes. And this whole like forbidden door thing that could sincerely boost the demographic for all wrestling.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And
And
I feel
honestly,
like whenever they started it back, was it 2019? Whenever Jericho had either 2018, 20, somewhere around there. Whenever
mhm,
Jericho uh, left his contract with WWE and then had that amazing match with Kenny Omega. I think that's what kind of got the ball rolling as far as okay, we can have people from different companies go at it
yeah,
and fill these dream matches to the best that we can.
yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. And Jericho, well, after he left WWE, he definitely, did his rounds, in New Japan. And I think he helped get the ball rolling for AEW. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? And of course,
definitely.
the All In pay-per-view that they did and everything, and just I think AEW being around has definitely helped pro wrestling in as a whole, because now we got competition. Now we got options. You know what
That's
I'm saying?
exactly right. And WWE, I think a huge reason for the kind of lackluster years that we've had with WWE in the late 2010s was because there was little to no competition.
Yeah.
Impact or TNA, whatever you wanted to call it, that was as low as it could be without being completely done.
Yeah.
Other than that, you had New Japan and then you had Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
NWA wasn't hardly doing anything. So WWE had no real competition until AEW came along. Then
Yeah.
you've seen people like Chris Jericho, John Moxley, the Young Bucks, like huge worldwide names coming together and building this promotion from the ground up. That kind of helped WWE realize, like, oh shit, we need to do something.
Yeah.
And because of this competition between them, I feel like we are now at the peak of where WWE could be, and it's only going up from there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I totally agree. So not AEW. We've seen WWE stars go to AEW, and we've seen vice versa. What WWE star do you think benefited going to AEW? Like, not necessarily made them a bigger star, but they went over there and they came to AEW and they're doing their thing.
I'm torn between two. There's Claudio, because whenever he was Cesaro, as great of a talent he was, WWE wasn't doing shit with him.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And as much as I loved what he did in WWE, Jon Moxley.
Yep. Yep.
Moxley got comfortable and was able to really do what he wanted to do without having to worry about, okay, well, is Vince going to approve this? No, I'm not going to do that. That looks fucking stupid. You know what I mean? He was able to finally get comfortable with where he was at and what he was doing.
Yep.
Would I like to see Moxley come back and do something potentially? Sure. But like we said about Ricochet earlier, I want him to be happy where he's at.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would love to see Jon Moxley come back to WWE as Jon Moxley.
Yes.
That would be crazy. Like, he probably, if he had the character that he has now, if he had that in WWE, he'd probably be a bigger star than what he is now in AEW.
Oh, for sure.
Because he kind of reminded me, he could have been this era's Stone Cold Steve Austin if they pushed him right.
Absolutely. And I'm never going to dismiss what he did with the Shield and what he did after the Shield.
Oh, yeah.
But the last couple of years, you can tell on screen, like, maybe to the typical fan couldn't really see it that well, but people that know the craft, such as you and I and quite a few other people, you could just tell that he wasn't really happy with what he was doing. He did it, but you have to like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. And this is considered a hot topic, but that was kind of the same thing with CM Punk and AEW. Yeah. He didn't like what he was doing. And whenever he came back to WWE, he kind of was like, all right, I'm familiar with this. I'm comfortable with this. I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
Not saying that he was 100% innocent with the whole all-out situation and everything prior to that, because, I wasn't there. I don't exactly know. Yeah. But you can just tell that Punk didn't really care too much about what he was doing there.
I agree. And then to go back to Moxley, I remember before he left WWE, he had this character, because I remember he was in a storyline with Seth Rollins, and that's when he was, of course, Dean Ambrose.
Yeah,
he was a heel, but he was walking around with a gas mask on.
Yeah, that was right after he turned on Seth, the night that Roman announced that he had leukemia again.
Yeah, and it's just like, what are they doing with him? It was like, he had that little, it was like a real small run with that heel character wearing the gas mask.
And in February they brought the Shield back.
Yeah, because I think that's when he announced that he was leaving the company. So I guess to kind of like get that one last Shield, get that one last thing out of the Shield and, capitalize off that money and stuff. That's when they brought him back and did the whole farewell thing. And it was just like, he shouldn't have went out like that, man. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely not. And I mean, if they wanted to turn Ambrose heel, great. But I think it would have been better off if he was a heel version of that Lunatic Fringe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The run that he had after the Shield disbanded and so on. That jeans and wife beater kind of guy. Just have that same look.
Yeah.
Just a different attitude. I feel like that would have benefited so much more instead of the gas mask and, all that was unnecessary. And that's just from an outsider looking in. My fantasy booking is going hard right now. So, I mean, obviously I can't have everything how I want it. But I feel like that would have been a better outcome than what this was.
Yeah, I totally agree. Real quick, while we talking about WWE, of course, everybody's gonna talk about the bloodline. We've seen so many twists and turns with this story, with the people in the bloodline, the stories. Where do you think about where it's going right now?
Honestly, I'm not sure what to think about it. It's still just new enough to where it's still trying to find its footing.
Yeah, yeah.
But to me, the bloodline will always be fronted by Roman Reigns. Nobody else.
Oh yeah,
You can
definitely.
make the exception for The Rock, but for fuck's sake, that's The Rock.
Yeah.
If
Oh
he
yeah.
wanted to come, if he wanted to come in and run Judgment Day, he could have.
Yeah, he's part of the board of directors at TKO, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, like you can make the exception for The Rock in the bloodline, but no matter what, it's always going to be Roman Reigns.
Oh yeah, most.
So without him being in it, it's not. To me,
Yeah,
it's not the bloodline.
I totally agree. So, do you think that the once he comes back, they should start developing the story on putting the Usos back together?
Yeah, the way that I see it, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not. And like I said, if I could have everything how I wanted it, I'd feel like wrestling would be at the best that it's ever could be. But the way that it's kind of looking right now, it looks like they're going to start leaning towards another variation of the Bloodline Civil War.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I would like to see whether it be at SummerSlam or Survivor Series, hell, even Mania next year.
mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if we're going to see something to where it's like Roman and the Usos taking on Solo, Tamaloa, and Tama Tonga.
Yeah. I think if they do, if that's the where they're going, because I'm hearing that Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa's little brother is supposed to be coming to WWE, and he's supposed to be joining the bloodline with those two and Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there is so many twists and turns. Like I think the perfect match, if it does go, if it does happen to be a bloodline civil war, I think it's Survivor Series. You got to have them in
Yeah.
war games. You
Oh,
gotta
hell yeah.
you gotta let these guys just brawl it out. And I think another dream match that, of course, everybody wants to see Roman. I think they're building up with for Roman and Solo. But I think the dream match that we really gotta talk about that we could possibly see down the line is Tama Tonga Tonga Loa against the Usos.
Yes.
Just think about when the Usos do reunite, the pop that they are going to get. Because I think if they do reunite them, they're gonna have Jay Uso's music, but I think they're gonna change the words. It's gonna be back to "We've been down since day one."
Yeah.
It's gonna go with that, but then everything that Jay has been doing with his entrance, including that with the Usos, it's gonna be crazy. They're gonna get a huge pop when they reunite. The original bloodline, when they reunite, it's gonna get a huge pop. And especially when they come back together as baby faces. Oh man, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see what happens with these guys down the line. I think SummerSlam is really when you're gonna start seeing a lot of.
Definitely. And the thing is like I was never 100% against them splitting the Usos up, but I feel like they did it at the wrong time.
Okay.
I feel like it was way too soon because then we had 6 months to a year before, not a year, but 6 months, 6 to 8 months where Jimmy and Jay didn't really interact with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had that segment on SmackDown where Jay Uso said he's leaving SmackDown. And then since then, they haven't really done anything besides a few like cameo appearances from Jimmy here and there.
Yeah. It seemed like
But
every time Jay Uso had a title match or something, Jimmy would just pop out and cost him a match or whatever.
Yeah, and that's all well and good, but it's like if he's going to keep doing that, then revisit it. Don't have him do that, and then we leave this storyline blank for a month, and then waiting for it to happen again.
Yeah,
There was way too many holes in that story that could have been filled with something better, but like I said, and in my opinion, I just feel like they could have done that a little bit later. I feel like it was too soon.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So,
And to be completely honest, their match at Mania was dog shit.
yeah. I think a lot of people expected more, but it was just really a super kick party, as the young bucks would say.
and this is kind of a hot topic, so to speak, but it's like the super kick's nothing but a generic wrestling move anymore.
Yeah.
I remember used to, whenever we'd see a super kick, we're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But now everybody does it. The Usos, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Johnny Gargano, everybody does it.
Yeah.
And so the match between Jimmy and Jay, when it was nothing but super kicks, it's like, where's the actual wrestling? That move's no longer special and, dare I say, getting kind of overdone.
Yeah. I would definitely say they definitely with the brother versus brother match, that was another failure because that Matt and Jeff Hardy match that they had at together at
25.
WrestleMania, that was also that wasn't good either. Like the best brother versus brother match. I mean, of course, it ain't no argument. Bret Hart versus Owen at WrestleMania.
Absolutely. And I'll get the argument. No, it wasn't real brothers, but you know what? I'm keeping kayfabe alive here, okay? Kane and Undertaker had some damn good matches at WrestleMania.
Yeah. And you know what? Going back, because I know you had said that Kane was one of your favorites from
yes,
back in the day. Kane always came off to me as like the Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers of pro wrestling. Like,
yes,
just his the way he would come to the ring, the way he would be in the ring, and if somebody say something to him, and then the way he'd do his head like this, like Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers used to do that same thing, and it's crazy.
So it's funny because WWE has all these like crazy, creepy, psychopath-like characters, but in my opinion, nothing can match or even come close to the overall shit show that was 2003 Kane. And I use the term shit show not because it was bad, but 2003 Kane, from the time he took off the mask,
oh man,
forward, it's like, how did they get away with this shit on TV?
Yeah.
For fuck's sake, he electrocuted Shane McMahon's testicles.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Then he put Jim Ross on fire.
Yes.
Yeah, he was just doing like a bunch of like crazy stuff. But I hated
you could be scared of the Fiend. You could be scared of, hell, for as much as I like him, you could be scared of the Undertaker.
Yeah.
But 2003 Kane just gives you that weird vibe that's like, what the hell are they doing? He's going to kill this person.
Yeah. And then I think the whole it was just weird because when he took the mask off, he had half bald head and half hair, and then they just put like this makeup under his eyes, but they never really made it like, they made it seem like he was burnt up in a church fire or a funeral home fire.
Yeah.
And I forgot how they described it after he took the mask off. They were basically saying he was probably going through like emotional scars and thought he was burnt up and stuff like that.
Yeah, emotional scarring.
They could have did a whole, they should have did a better job with him after he took the mask off. But I think it would have been kind of difficult to put like all this makeup and stuff on him while he's in the ring in a match wrestling too.
Exactly. And it was, and plus his look too added to it. This
Yeah,
7 foot bald coming out with a dish rag over his head. Like
yeah, right.
that's the Kane I remember very well. And I've watched his, like, I wasn't born yet whenever he first burst on the scene as Kane.
Okay, okay,
I was born shortly after him taking them, shortly before he took the mask off.
okay.
So I obviously at the time didn't remember any of that, and I don't remember any of that because I wasn't around then. But for as much like research as I've done into it and how many rabbit holes I've dug, I feel like that era of Kane was arguably his best. From storyline to in ring to just looking like a damn monster.
Yeah,
That was the best.
yeah. I think if you ever get a chance, go back to when he debuted
Oh
in the
yeah.
in the Hell in the Cell match and he broke the cage door and everything.
Yeah.
Like that Kane right there was a beast because
Oh
it
yeah, for
showed
sure.
vulnerability to the Undertaker. The Undertaker was a dead man, and he would come to the ring, hair just straight down on his face. He
Yeah.
got that cold look, but when it came to Kane, that's when you saw that vulnerability in the
Yeah, that
Undertaker.
was the
Undertaker,
first time you seen Undertaker actually like, oh shit, I've met my match.
yup, yeah, yeah,
And I mean, I feel like as far as character work, those two are on the Mount Rushmore as far as character work. Because Kane has done a hell of a job with his character.
yeah,
Obviously, Undertaker's done a hell of a job with his character. Every so often, changing it up just a slight bit, just so it's not stale to the crowd.
yeah. And that's why I liked it when the Undertaker came, when he was the American Badass. I don't
Yes.
know what it was about that character. I think one of the reasons why I like this character is because he came down to the Kid Rock song, the American
Yes.
Badass song, and he had the Limp Bizkit song as his entrance too.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it was just a different side of Undertaker. Like this dude was normal. You know what I'm saying? And of course we
Yeah.
know that, when he was the dead man, that's a character. But for him to make that switch and to come back and just be a normal, regular person, I think that was cool. Like I think that character turnaround is up there with Sting when he went from the surfer dude to the black and
Yes.
white. Because Sting did wrestle for almost 2 years in that NWO storyline. And during that time, he wasn't saying nothing, and him not saying nothing was like one of the biggest things. Him coming from the rafters and just beating the NWO up with the bat and then just handing it to the other WCW stars to kind of like, okay, you with me or you not with me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those were good times. Like those were just great stories that were told, whether it was WCW with the NWO and Sting, and then of course WWE with Austin and McMahon and Kane and Undertaker, DX and the Nation. Like it was a lot. That for me, the Attitude Era is probably the best era in wrestling because it
Yes.
it helped put everybody on.
Exactly. And I mean, I grew up with the tail end of the Attitude Era going into the Ruthless Aggression Era. And then
Okay.
once the PG era started, that's where I kind of dived back a little bit. Like, I still watched it,
Mm-hmm.
but it lost me.
Yeah.
Because to me, all the PG era was seeing John Cena beat somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I understand they wanted to go for the younger demographic, but it almost appeared like they weren't necessarily trying anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was around the time when they basically didn't have any competition. And they
Yeah,
knew like, okay, we could just put whatever out, like, cause there's no other wrestling to watch. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's probably how I think that's how they felt because, like you said, some of them storylines were bad. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
and I mean, I feel like the best things like matches or storylines that's come out of the PG era were Taker and Triple H
Yeah, yeah,
that build to WrestleMania 29 between Undertaker and Punk,
yeah,
and then Rock and Cena. Other than that, there wasn't really any huge move until 2014.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
And to me, 2014, like, and this is just based off of my wrestling emotion,
Mm-hmm.
but that was probably the, not counting the Thunderdome era, that was probably the darkest time because of the streak.
Yeah.
I'm I'm not shy to say that I was the definition of the word pissed whenever Brock went over instead of Undertaker,
Yeah, yeah,
because you have so much talent at your disposal, but you're going to choose a already well-made star that's Brock Lesnar to do
yeah,
it.
yeah. I
What
think
Brock didn't need it.
no, he didn't. He didn't.
He's already multi-time world champion. He's already won a Royal Rumble, the biggest combat sports athlete on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
What did the streak do for him besides give him another achievement?
That's true. That's true.
If they would have waited until 33, I feel like the right time, the right person to do it, especially seeing how the last 10 years have gone, I feel like Roman would have been the best.
Yeah, yeah,
Because whenever he beat The Undertaker, he was still working his way to the top.
yeah, yeah,
Brock Lesnar's already been to the top. He's already seen the tip of that mountain.
yeah.
Give it to
I agree.
somebody else. So whenever, I could talk about this for hours, but whenever Brock went over, that was the worst decision that could have been made with that streak. Hell, I mean, I would
Yeah.
have been happier if Hornswoggle went over instead of Brock Lesnar.
Hey, I still remember that because me and my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, and we were watching WrestleMania, and we just sitting there watching the match. You know what I'm saying? We watching the Brock Undertaker match, and when he pinned him and hit the three, and we just like, wait a minute, did the Undertaker just lose at WrestleMania? And then they started showing everybody in the crowd that was shocked. They showed the one guy that turned into a meme,
Yeah.
and it was just like, did they really do this? Like, and it's just like you said. For me, I think it's two guys that I think should have broke a streak. Roman is definitely one of them, and I think Bray Wyatt should have had the opportunity to break
Oh,
the
dude.
streak. And that
Links
definitely,
that Bray Wyatt would have reached with his character would have
yeah,
been sky high.
yeah, yeah,
And but no, with Brock doing it, that was just a slap in the face to the fans that's tuning into WrestleMania for the streak.
exactly, exactly. And then that's just even with Brock when he beat Kofi Kingston. Like they just let Kofi Kingston just get buried. Like they ain't even
Oh,
get.
that was bullshit, dude.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just because I remember that's when they was doing the whole. That's I think SmackDown had just moved to Fox and they were
Yep.
building it up like yeah, Brock and Kofi, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not necessarily expecting Kofi to win, but I want to see how this go. The match ended before you could really even look at it for real. Like if you blink, you missed the match. That's how bad
Yeah.
it was.
And what pissed me off was They had this storyline of Kofi jumping through different hoops to finally get to that match at WrestleMania to beat Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
He's jumped all these hurdles. He's done everything Vince wanted him to do. He's beaten this person. He's beaten that person.
Mm-hmm.
He's earned his way just from to lose in 8 seconds to Brock.
Yeah.
What does that say to Kofi? Somebody who's been there for a long time, hasn't left and jumped ship.
Yeah.
He has stayed loyal to the WWE since he signed.
I agree.
And to have him lose like that, I wouldn't have blamed Kofi if he left.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, if he decided right then that he was going to leave WWE, I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah.
Just for them to build up to that bullshit feud between Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was dumb. Like, let's just be real. That was fucking dumb.
Yeah. And I would definitely say that Kofi winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania definitely is up there with one of my favorite moments of all time. And not just that, like after WrestleMania, they showed a video of MVP. I don't even think he was back with the company yet. It was him and Shad from Crime Time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were watching it at a club, at a bar or something. And just to see the happiness on their face and just to see Shad break down the way he did after Kofi won, I thought that was dope.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it gave me the same feeling watching Kofi win as it did watching Daniel Bryan win.
Yeah.
When he finally won in the main event,
yeah,
you could just feel the emotion.
Yeah.
Whether you're there or thousands of miles away, you can feel that emotion. So feeling that watching Kofi pay off was a huge moment in history that nobody's going to be able to replicate. But to have him bust his ass for so long and lose in that short of time to Brock Lesnar, that was, like I said, I wouldn't have blamed Kofi if he would have walked out of the company that day.
Yeah, I totally agree. Definitely agree. Let's switch it over to AEW real quick and let's talk about the return of MJF. What do you think? What do you expect out of his return now that he's kind of, he's resigned with the company? He said that he's not leaving, and it seemed like he got a different look to his character. He kind of took that old Triple H look.
Yep.
And he's doing that now. So what do you think of, him coming back? What do you expect for him to do?
Well, like around the time of the Rumble, a lot of the speculation was going around that MJF was going to be in the Royal Rumble match or make his way to WWE one way or another.
Yeah.
The way I saw it is if MJF left AEW and jumped ship, that would have been the start of the downfall of AEW.
Yeah.
Because MJF, whether you hate him or love him, he's kind of held that company together for all this time.
I agree.
His promo work is unlike almost anybody else in that company right now.
Yeah.
He has a special way of being that heel that can genuinely piss fans off.
Yeah.
Where, like, that's what you want out of a heel.
Yeah.
Especially a vocal heel. You want that heel to be able to get under people's skin and make you hate him. That's what MJF has. And I feel like if Tony Khan would have lost him, it would have been downhill from there. But another reason why I didn't really see him going to WWE is because then he would have had to changed up his mic work a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He can't be near as blunt or vulgar as he was in AEW. Vulgar, I understand.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, and this is for lack of a better term, I feel like he gets away with more shit in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And people love that. You want to, like I said, you want a heel that can piss you off. If you're looking at a heel cutting a promo and saying some really horrible things, it's rewarding to that person whenever you're like, oh, I fucking hate that guy. Not, oh, that was not nice, but I still like him. He's a good wrestler. No, if you want to be a heel, you have to really just dive deep and piss people off.
Yeah, I agree. And it just go back to what you said. Like, if MJF would have left AEW, it probably would have been, like you said, downhill from there. Because
Yeah.
you look at all the AEW guys that have left AEW to go to WWE, they're bigger stars now. Look at Cody
Exactly.
Rhodes. Look at Cody Rhodes. Like, Cody was always a big star in the indies and when he got to AEW. But once he got to WWE, his theme song is bigger now than it ever was. And he had that theme
Mm-hmm.
song for years. Even before he got to AEW, he had it. You know
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
saying? And he got behind that WWE engine. They started, sprinkling their little magic on him. And he's one of the top stars in not just WWE, but just in the business now. You look
Yeah.
at Jade Cargill. Jade
Mm-hmm.
Cargill was a star in AEW. She get the WWE. You see her all at the football games. You see her doing little charity work, interviews and stuff. And she's a bigger. It seems like she's a bigger star now than she was in AEW. And even if you look at guys like Lexis King and possibly Ethan Page and down in NXT, they'll
Yeah.
probably get a better run and better opportunity down there than they did in AEW. So
Yes.
AEW has to figure out a way to make their originals big stars because Moxley's already a star. Jericho's already a star. Uh, Tony Storm is already a star. Soraya is already a star. Mercedes Moné is already a star. They got to find a way to build Darby Allin even more. Or I'm trying to think of some other names.
Yeah, like Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, fucking
Yeah,
Luchasaurus.
yeah. Like I hate what they done with Luchasaurus. Like he kind of remind me of Kane a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you got this dude. His name is Kill Switch. Like really? Like come on, man. He got to snap out of it. He got to break from Christian. I don't think him and Jack Perry will get back together because he's with the Elite and
Yeah.
he kind of got a different character going on. But yeah, Luchasaurus got to get away from this whole Christian family. That whole little group, that whole little storyline they had going on was just weird for me.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I deeply admire this guy, I feel like going to AEW was kind of a downgrade, and that's Edge or Adam Copeland. Fuck
Yeah,
that. He's always Edge.
yeah,
Um, like, yeah, I respect him for wanting to do more with the little time that he's got left.
yeah, yeah.
But he was a main attraction in WWE, not just for the few matches that he had, but for the last 20 years. I mean,
Yeah,
if you see Edge's name on a bill, you know that it's going to be good.
yeah,
Think about his programs with The Undertaker, his programs with people like Jeff Hardy.
yeah. John Cena.
Yes. And going to AEW, I don't know if that was just his way of ending his career working with Christian, but I feel like it wouldn't be near as good for him if he would have just stayed.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's also partially WWE's fault for not exactly wanting to do much with him.
Yeah, I agree.
But, I mean, he's always been WWE. He's never jumped ship to any other company besides beforehand whenever he was with WCW.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Once he reached WWE, he finally found his footing and is now one of the biggest wrestlers on the planet.
Yeah.
And dare I say, his return at the 2020 Royal Rumble might have been a little bit bigger than the CM Punk return at
Survivor Series. Yeah. And
the only reason why I say that is because rumor was already floating that Punk was coming back.
Yeah.
Survivor Series in Chicago. His contract just ended with AEW. It was you could, if you read the writing on the wall, you could have seen it.
Yeah.
Edge, he was disqualified from this game 9 years prior to this.
Yeah, broken neck.
And to my knowledge, he was never going to be able to step through those ropes and compete again. So with him returning and having that big of an ovation, you can't repeat that. And now, I mean, looking at pictures and videos on social media of the building attendance for AEW shows, he's really backpedaled quite a bit. And I hate to say that because Edge can do so much more.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I heard that with his run in AEW, I don't think that he necessarily wants to come back and be the world champion, come there and be the world champion, but it just don't seem like they just have any like the real direction for him. It's just basically like, hey, I just want to come and just wrestle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean now he's out for however long with this injury that he sustained against Malachi Black.
Yeah.
But it's like, if WWE would have worked with him, he could have done a whole lot more. And Edge is somebody that you don't have to put a championship on him for him to be a huge name.
Nah.
He can go out there and do whatever he wants and still potentially have a match of the year contender.
That's true. That's true. I agree with that. I definitely.
His match with Sheamus was one of the best matches last year.
Yeah. Yup. I totally agree. That you talking about that SmackDown episode? That was his last match.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yup. And that's even with Sheamus. Like, I think in a way, I think Sheamus, his run in WWE is kind of like flaming out too, because it's like they don't know what to do with him either. I would love to see him in the running to be like the world heavyweight champion or something. Like, I feel like certain wrestlers, when they get at a certain status, not necessarily keep that status, but like still make them, like Sheamus is a world champion. You know what I'm saying? And it's like not necessarily put the belt on him, have him beat Damian Priest, but make his history as a world champion relevant. Like, don't have him come back. First of all, when he came back, he was out of shape.
Yeah.
And then he's having matches with Ludwig Kaiser. You know what I'm saying? And nothing against Ludwig Kaiser, because I like Ludwig Kaiser. But I just think that Sheamus deserves a little bit more. I think he deserves a little bit more, deserves a little bit better.
Of course. And
also,
excuse me. Sheamus was my pick to dethrone Gunther.
Yeah,
I feel like there would have been a no better pick. Yeah, Chad Gable. But their match at Clash of the Castle in 2022 was one of the best technical wrestling matches I've seen in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's the one thing in the WWE that Sheamus hasn't done is win the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah.
Like, he obviously hadn't won the Universal Championship, but he's been around longer than that belt was. And, but he's won Royal Rumble. He's won Money in the Bank. He hasn't main evented WrestleMania. He had the year that he was supposed to main event WrestleMania, he had a squash match against Daniel Bryan. But
I remember. Yeah, he beat him in like 5 seconds. Like,
yeah. And I can't stand matches like that where it's ring the bell, a finisher, and it's over.
Yeah.
Every once in a great while where it fits, it works.
Yeah.
But as far as, having a match that could potentially be very, very good, having it end that way, example, Kofi and Brock.
Yeah.
If they would have let that match go 10 minutes, it would have been a far better outcome than what it was. They would have had way better reviews, ratings. What's up, bub? Hey, what's the matter? It's coming on, bub. Sorry, his show keeps buffering because we had a tornado through here a couple weeks ago, and so all like cell towers and reception areas, they're still being worked on.
Okay.
So it's not near as great as what it was. We still have some.
Yeah.
But you could definitely tell that it's not quite what it used to be.
Yeah, definitely.
But and as far as like short squash matches go, the most degrading one, not counting Brock and Kofi, was Kane and Chavo Guerrero back in 2008.
Oh, I think I remember that. Was it for like the ECW championship?
Yeah.
Or
The ECW champion Kane versus Chavo Guerrero. And that's already a lopsided match anyway because they have nothing.
Yeah.
That compares the two. The match happened because Kane won a battle royal.
Yeah.
And so they went on, had this match, and it was 6 seconds for Kane to squash Chavo and win the ECW championship.
Yeah.
What happened to Chavo since? What has he done since? Nothing.
Yeah, he's been missing. He's been on you got to put a missing report out on Chavo.
So, I mean, squash matches I can't stand. But going back to Sheamus and, like, if he could pick up that Intercontinental Championship, then he could officially say that he's done damn near everything there is to do with the WWE.
Yeah.
And, again, he's not left since he started. He's not ventured to other companies. He's stayed loyal to that company.
Yep.
And I feel like they should recognize that by letting him end his career with at least holding every championship once.
That would be fair. That would be fair, because there's a couple of wrestlers that have done it that was around the time that Sheamus was when he started in WWE. I mean, you look at The Miz, he's won every title.
Yep.
Kofi's won every title. Roman has won every title. I want to say Seth Rollins has won every title. There's a lot of guys that are Grand Slam champions. So, yeah.
Excluding the Universal Champion, we also have Jeff Hardy.
Yep. That's true.
And to be completely honest, I love Sami Zayn. I love what he's capable of doing in the ring.
Yeah.
I love his character work. But he was not the person to beat Gunther.
Yeah. I kind of felt like he was gonna do it because if you really like the build up towards that match, they was kind of trying to base it off of a Rocky movie.
Yep.
I think it was Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Chad Gable was supposed to have been Apollo Creed, and he was supposed to trying to get him into wrestling shape and trying to get his mind right to go up against Gunther. It reminded me so much of Rocky 3.
Oh yeah, to a T. And like, again, like as much as I love Sami Zayn and loved what he's done with the company, he wasn't the person. It kind of ties back with Brock beating the streak.
Yeah.
Sammy's not the person.
Yeah.
He's already made. He main evented WrestleMania last year in probably the best tag team match I've seen in a long damn time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was a part of one of the greatest storylines in a long time with him and the Bloodline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, plus Sammy's been Intercontinental Champion multiple times before.
That's true. Yep.
What is this win over Gunther really going to do besides make him champion?
Yeah, because
that's something I wish people would look at more. Is like, you want this person to do it, but it's like, think about why they want it, why they should do it. That's how I base my predictions on any kind of like PLEs or Raw or SmackDown or anything coming up. It's like, okay, what makes the most sense? It made sense for Chad Gable to do so because he's not won singles gold since he's been in WWE.
Yeah.
And the only time that he's been tag team that has been champions has been tag teams.
Yeah.
Let's see. The American Alpha,
American
and Jason
Alpha.
Jordan.
I think he was a tag team champion with Shelton Benjamin. And
was he tag team champion with Bobby Roode as well?
I think so. Yep. Yeah. And I know he won the Raw tag team titles with Otis.
Yeah. So I mean, give that to him. Hell, he again going back to staying with the company and staying loyal. He stayed loyal. Hell, I wouldn't have blamed him for leaving after that whole Shorty G bullshit.
Oh man, yeah.
Talk about ridiculous storylines.
Yeah.
Shorty G is horrible.
Yeah, I totally
You've seen
agree.
what he did in NXT alongside Jason Jordan being one of the best tag teams there. And then coming up and being nothing but a joke.
Yeah. I definitely agree. But I also think too, like, when America Alpha, when they didn't split, Jason Jordan had to stop wrestling because of he had a career-ending neck injury. I just think that they didn't know what to do with him, and especially when you got
they had this weird ass angle with him being the illegitimate son of Kurt Angle and.
Yeah.
All that shit. That was dumb. Like, let's be real. That was dumb.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. But hopefully at Clash at the Castle, he could get it done. You know what I'm saying? And I also think with him turning heel, I think there's going to be a new version of him, the Alpha Academy. And I think it's going to be him and the Creed brothers. They showed they showed on the shows a couple of times Chad Gable in the back talking to the Creed brothers. So that would be interesting to put those three together, and then you could include Ivy now. I think that I think she's better as a heel.
Oh, definitely. And if they play their cards right, they could have something huge with Chad Gable if he goes over this Saturday. Mm-hmm. What I'd like to see is him go over and then give Otis a chance at him. Have Otis finally snap and lose his shit.
Yeah.
Build up to a match at SummerSlam. Quoted teacher versus student.
Yep. That'd be dope. That would be dope right there.
Honestly, that's one of the best storylines they have going right now, besides Punk and McIntyre.
Yeah. And that's gonna be an interesting
And
storyline when CM Punk comes back.
dude, once Punk comes back, I have a feeling this feud might end up being feud of the year. And they haven't even done anything yet.
Right. That's true.
It hasn't even gotten started, but this is probably the best work that McIntyre's done ever.
Yeah.
Like as a character.
I agree. I know that he was kind of fell off a little bit, and I think it was like that because they didn't know if he was going to resign with the company or not. So now that I feel like that he re-signed with the company, it's like, okay, we might consider putting the title on you. I think he's going to win at Clash at the Castle. When he was champion, when he did win the world championship against Brock, it was the pandemic. So, that WrestleMania moment was in the Performance Center. Then when they finally did had WrestleMania with the crowd, he lost to Bobby Lashley. So I think he's about to get his moment this Saturday, and it's gonna be interesting in these next couple of weeks when weeks or months when Punk come back to see this storyline really elevate between these two.
Oh, for sure. And sorry, I put my phone on the charger. This is going to be huge. Whatever they do, whatever the outcome is going to be, something big's going to happen, one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Damian goes over or Drew, because I constantly forget, and I have to keep telling myself to keep in mind that whoever wins gets Gunther at SummerSlam since he's King of the Ring.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him win the World Heavyweight Championship at King of the Ring.
Yeah, and I mean, he deserves it. Whether you like him or not, he took the Intercontinental title to lengths it hasn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
He honestly, before Gunther, the last person to make that title relevant was Miz.
Yup. Yeah.
People don't give Miz as much credit as he deserves.
At all. A lot of people,
it's painful.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is because of how he started off. He was a reality show star, but he actually took wrestling serious. Like, he was a real fan. Like, because I remember when he was on the Real World and he used to do the Miz character. And he had the little toy belt and everything. And then I remember after Real World ended, he did Tough Enough and they gave him hell. They gave him so much hell. But I think that through the years, he earned and gained his respect. And honestly, you can't really say that the Miz misses a lot of time because of injury. He's always that one guy that's always going to be there.
Exactly. And he's one of the only people, like, a lot of people can't do this. He's one of the only people in the WWE that can play both characters perfectly.
Yeah.
If he wants to be a babyface, he could play a damn good babyface. If he wants to be a piece of shit heel, he could play that heel role very well.
Yeah.
A lot of people now can't really do that. Like, yeah, they can play babyface, they can play heel, but The Miz has, like I said about MJF, he has that way of making you really fucking hate the guy.
Yup. Yeah.
But
definitely.
he doesn't get near as much credit as he deserves because he's seen WWE through it all.
Yeah.
Since he's been there.
That's true.
He started during the Ruthless Aggression era, stayed through the PG era, got eaten alive during the Thunderdome era, and now he's here.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm loving what he's doing with Truth.
Yeah. And it's just one of them things because you already know how the Miz is. You know he don't stay babyface too long. So the next thing is, when is he gonna turn on Truth? Because it eventually
Yeah.
is bound to happen.
And I mean, the thing with Miz, it's like you said, he's always there and deserves more. And honestly, that was another contender that I had that could have beaten Gunther.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miz has been to the top. He's done it all. But it's also kind of a way of giving back to the Miz for giving what he gave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I switched my earbud. My other one died. All right, you got me?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. But no, like I feel like if he would have won, it wouldn't have been one of those like, well, he didn't need it. No, Miz doesn't need it. But it's showing appreciation for what he has done.
I definitely agree. Well, Mason, I gotta thank you for coming on the show. We had a great conversation about pro wrestling, and once again, anytime you want to come back in the future, you are more than welcome to come back. Is it anything that you wanted to promote? Anything you want to, any plugs, any shout outs you want to give?
Honestly, like I just, for those listening, I want to reiterate something that's probably said quite a bit, but I feel like it can never be said too much. Don't be loyal to just one company. Don't be the one that's only a WWE fan or only an AEW fan.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a fan of the craft, look at it all.
Yep.
You may prefer one brand over the other, but at the end of the day, it's professional wrestling.
Yep.
It's men and women going out there and putting their lives on the line to make people happy.
Yep. I agree.
No matter who they are, what company they're with, we all have, they only have one goal in mind, is to entertain people.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of things on social media, heat battles between other fans. It's like, oh, WWE is shit now, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to watch AEW. That's where real wrestling is, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, wrestling is wrestling.
Yep. I agree. I definitely.
And I mean, just appreciate what we have, because there could be a day where professional wrestling is no longer really even a thing.
Yep, that's true. And then keep it real. Honestly, we didn't have these options years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We just had to watch WWE, and then Impact Wrestling was kind of on that. It was good, but you could tell that it was falling off, especially when like Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and all them guys got there.
Yeah, that's when, like, whenever AJ Styles kind of ventured away from it. Like,
yeah.
But I'm not saying you have to be a fan of every company, but be optimistic. Check out all of them. Widen your variety, if you will.
Hey, that's a good message. Hey, a lot of these cats that call themselves wrestling fans, they need to hear that, because if you see the debates going back and forth on like Facebook and stuff, it's WWE versus AEW.
And it pisses me off, because it's like, you're claiming to be a wrestling fan. If you are picking one company over the other, no, you're not a wrestling fan. You're that company's fan.
Yep. Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a huge AEW fan. I don't like some of the directions that they've gone.
Mm-hmm.
but I still give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm still optimistic. I still watch it because it's professional wrestling.
Yup. Yeah, me too. And I think that's I just feel like that with all wrestling. I would like to see TNA come back on like a different station or whatever. But so I could watch it more and stuff. But like you said, just enjoy wrestling. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of
Yeah,
it out here, and it's no reason to be going back and forth beefing about which company is better, because at the end of the day,
it's not that
WWE,
serious.
it's not that serious, and WWE will always be the top dog. Like
Yeah, because
nobody,
it's ran the scene for so long that it's gonna take a grenade launcher to knock them off.
definitely.
And it's gotten to the point. What's up, Bubba? Oh, his show stopped again. But as far as the whole comments on like anything saying it's fake or it's these people are best friends outside of it breaking kayfabe,
Yeah.
it's the same thing as watching a movie.
Yep.
Yeah, he's okay. I'm watching him right now. He's just not happy that his show paused. Once it comes back on, he'll be just happy. But no matter what, it's the same thing as watching a movie.
Definitely. Most definitely. Once again, Mason, thank you for coming on, telling
What's
your
up, Bubba?
story.
Of course, man.
And like I said, once again, if you more than welcome to come back on a future episode. And your podcast, Outside the Square Circle, is on YouTube, right?
Yes, sir. It's on YouTube and Facebook. Come
Cool.
here, bub. Hey. You're okay. I got you. I promise. Oh, you want my drink now? Okay, you can have my drink. I was gonna drink that, but what's mine is his apparently.
Right. Real quick before you get up out of here, want to tell everybody to make sure you check out Wrestling from the 313 on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment on the videos. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go on Facebook and follow, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Go to the Wrestling from the 313 shop. Make sure you get some Wrestling from the 313 apparel, and just get down with the 313. For my guest, Mason Lott, I am your host, Mike D, and this is another episode of Wrestling from the 313. Peace.
Take care, guys. Hey, it's okay, bud. Hey.